Action and adventure TV shows channel from ComedyMX spotlights Tarzan, Rin Tin Tin, Zorro, complete Saturday matinee serials Captain Zero, Annie Oakley, The Big Picture, Korea and Vietnam Wars, and more. More! The thrills and chills never stop at ComedyMX.
What a rhubarb. Don't say there's never any excitement at this base. You know, it's a shame it blew over so quick. I would have loved to have seen Sergeant Corey get hit with a lip.
Telling you for the last time, Corey, keep out of my business.
I'm telling you, keep away from Shirley.
Oh, Jim, please, it isn't worth it.
I told him to stay away from you. There's only one way to show him I mean it.
All right, let's settle it. Round the back?
Right now.
Oh, Jim! Ronnie! Dad, do something.
Do? If I was 30 years younger, I'd do the same thing Sergeant Corey's gonna do. Only I wouldn't use my fist on that.
Let's go before the MPs get here.
Oh, you go ahead. I'm going to stay.
Okay, Padman. Show's almost over. Get the MPs. That's an order!
Sergeant Corey.
I know I'm under arrest. Breach of the peace.
Is that what you call it? Sergeant Hall is dead.
Get in your car and drive west on 61 to Alhambra. I'll meet you at the corner of Market and Pierce, and start right now. Weston on the phone. Who else, of all the people I know in the world, would have the temerity, the consummate gall, to drag a busy lawyer 60 miles out of town without a please, let alone a word of explanation? It better be a good one. Who am I kidding? Knowing Weston, I knew darn well it would be a good one.
Thanks for coming, Herb. Let's go.
Let's go where? I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what this is all about.
I'll tell you on the way.
You'll tell me here.
On the way.
Here.
Herb, it's starting in 10 minutes.
What's starting?
The court-martial. What else?
What else? Minutes later, I was being sworn in as defense counsel for a man accused of murder. A man I'd never heard of before that afternoon.
Charges preferred by investigating officer Captain Peter Lyon, M Company, 261st Division, U.S. Army. Captain Lyon submits that on the evening of April 20th, 1961, Staff Sergeant James Corey engaged in an argument in the premises of the Post Exchange with Master Sergeant Ronald Hall, and that said argument developed into a physical fight which culminated in the death of Sergeant Hall. The prosecution intends to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Sergeant Hall was indeed murdered by Sergeant Corey.
As the court knows, I have just come on the case, and have had no opportunity to confer adequately with my client, the investigating officer, or with the witnesses. I therefore respectfully request a continuance until tomorrow morning.
If the prosecution and the court have no objections, this hearing will be continued at 1000 hours tomorrow. Court is adjourned. If you wish, you may speak to the defendant here.
You don't know how much I appreciate this. For a cop, I'm certainly playing an offbeat part in this. You feel pretty uncomfortable about this, don't you? Not about Jim Corey. I know he didn't kill that sergeant. You hope he didn't. You didn't even know he was in trouble until his mother called you yesterday. I've known that boy since he was in diapers. I practically brought him up from the age of 2 after his father died. And don't think it was a cinch either. In and out of trouble 9/10 of the time, in school and out. And then I finally got him to enlist in the Army, and he really made good. Staff Sergeant, 5 years is all right. Have you looked up his record since he got into the Army? I just told you, he made Staff Sergeant. I mean everything about him. Character reports, things like that. Oh, well, I'm going to check on that now. The investigating officer said it's all open to us. Well, Sergeant, let's get acquainted.
I didn't do it, Mr. Maris.
Well, that's what Lieutenant Weston's been telling me. You admit you fought with Hall?
Yes, sir.
Over a girl, wasn't it?
Well, I sure would like to keep her out of this. Do you think we could?
Not a chance. Who is she?
Shirley Miller. Father runs the PX. She helps him.
Oh, yeah, it says so here. So there was a fight with bottles of soda pop?
No, sir. Fists. Givers and Patman saw it.
Givers and Patman. Oh, the privates who followed you and watched the fight. Givers left after a minute or so. Patman stayed until you sent him for the MPs.
Yes, sir. That's right.
But Sergeant Hall died from being hit over the head with a bottle.
You mean it says there that Patman saw me hit him with a bottle?
No, it says the bottle was used after Patman left.
Well, not by me, sir. I hit Hall one more time with my fist. Knocked him out. Sure, there are bottles of pop all over the place, but I didn't use them. Maybe I shouldn't have sent Patman away.
Maybe you shouldn't have. Excuse me, I'm looking for a Private Patman.
I'm Patman, sir.
Oh. Well, my name is Maris. I'm the attorney for Sergeant Corey, court-martial proceedings. Can we talk?
Guess so.
Private.
Oh, yeah, I was just going into town anyhow. See you, Givers.
Did you call him Givers?
That's right.
Isn't he the soldier that was with you when Sergeant Hall was killed?
Yes, sir, but he didn't stay very long. He said he didn't want to get involved.
Weren't you afraid of getting involved?
It was my duty to stay, sir, just in case a witness was needed.
But you didn't stay till the very end either.
Well, I would have, but Sergeant Corey ordered me to go get the MPs.
Did you see a pop bottle in Sergeant Corey's hands at any time during the fight?
No, sir. I guess maybe I should have left when Givers did. Then I wouldn't have had to be the one to report him.
You like Sergeant Corey, don't you?
Yes, sir, I do. I guess maybe I'm the only one in this place who does.
Well, thanks, Private Patman.
Anytime, Mr. Maris.
Got a minute?
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm Herbert Maris. I'm counsel for Sergeant Corey. I understand you know him.
Know him? Meet his #1 pet goat.
He's not very popular with his men, is he?
Not very popular, the man says. Listen, Mr. Maris, this guy is studying to be Captain Bligh. Anybody that gets out of line with him, they just better go and cut their throat and forget about it.
He's rather strict, huh?
Mr. Maris, he's the worst.
Givers, do you think Corey was capable of deliberately killing Sergeant Hall with a pop bottle?
Well, if not him, who else? Shirley Miller? Her dad?
Those were the people who had something against Hall. What about the people who don't like Corey?
People who don't like Corey, I don't get it. Corey wasn't murdered.
No, but he's in serious trouble, isn't he? In fact, you boys may be rid of him for keeps thanks to what happened behind the PX. Well, thanks for your help, Private Gitters.
It's all right. Any time.
Well, I finally tracked you down. It's the bloodhound in you. How'd you make out with the investigating officer?
You've talked to a lot of GIs the last couple of hours. What's their consensus of opinion on Corey?
Well, there won't be any tears shed if he's convicted.
The self-appointed chief of McDougal Avenue from the age of 7. What's the matter? He rides them in too hard, is that it?
According to them, they're lucky if they come through training alive. All-night marches, battle maneuvers with live ammo.
So you'd expect a lot of men ending up in the hospital breaking down, huh? Well, you listen to this. In 3 years, not a single injury. In 3 years, 75 medals and promotions awarded to his men. A perfect record. Nothing but praise from his superiors right down the line.
You gentlemen talking about Sergeant Corey, I bet. Great soldier, Corey.
Mr. Miller, this is Lieutenant Weston.
How do you do?
How do you do?
I'm Herbert Maris. We're here on behalf of Sergeant Corey's defense.
Oh, well, anything I can do.
The trouble started right here in the PX, didn't it?
Well, it started a long time ago, Mr. Maris. Now, I don't want to say anything to hurt Jim Corey.
Well, you're talking to his lawyer.
Oh, well, like I said, he's one great soldier. Couldn't ever figure my daughter preferring... Well, what I mean is, she had a chance to marry Jim Corey before Hall came on this base. But Hall showed up with his sly ways and all. And surely she fell for him like he was the last guy on earth. I could see he was a lightweight. Too old for her, too. But would she listen to me? She had to learn the hard way. And just when everybody was beginning to take it for granted, she's engaged to Hall. Well, Jim was as burned up as I was. Can you blame him?
Now, wait a minute. If Sergeant Corey was really interested in Shirley, shouldn't he have been glad that the Hall affair was over?
Well, that's the whole trouble. It wasn't. Otherwise, what was Hall doing coming around for a date? If a man don't want to marry a girl, he ought to quit leading her on. Jim started telling him off.
Who struck the first blow?
Well, I don't know. I was only in on the argument. Then they went out back. Shirley and I stayed inside.
Can we talk to Shirley?
Well, Shirley's at home, but she'll be in here early tomorrow morning. They want the two of us to testify, you know. You wouldn't want to drive out to Greenville, where we live. That's 15 miles.
We don't mind. We'll drive.
Okay. 922 Maple. 2 blocks north of Maine at the first light.
That's it, 922.
Shirley Miller?
What are you betting? Don't be frightened, Miss Miller. We just want to ask a few questions.
Who are you?
Jim Corey's new counsel. I'm Herbert Maris, Lieutenant Weston's assistant. What is the terrible thing you know that makes you want to run away from the court-martial tomorrow?
How do you know I know anything?
Just guessing, do you?
Are you working for Jim?
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Well, then, no matter what I told you, no matter how bad it was, you could help him so it was less bad?
Well, let's say I'd rather find it out now than in the hearing room tomorrow morning.
Well, I wasn't inside all day yesterday. I went out once. I saw Ronnie lying on the ground. There was blood coming from his head. Then he spoke to me.
When the court-martial resumed, Shirley Miller found herself unwillingly tightening the noose around Sergeant Corey's neck.
Well, I was just getting my coat to leave with him when Jim Sergeant Corey came in and said I had a date with him for the evening. I told him it had only been tentative, but he got angry.
Do you think that possibly Sergeant Corey could have heard about your date with Hall and come around deliberately looking for trouble?
Objection. This could only be conjecture on the part of the witness and should not be admitted in evidence.
Objection sustained. Continue with your next question, Major Pearson.
You said that Sergeant Corey got angry. What happened then, Miss Miller?
Well, then the argument started. So I put my coat away and said I wasn't going anywhere with anybody.
Then they went outside to have it out. Did you try to stop them?
Yes, I did, but I couldn't. So I went back inside with my father in exchange.
Miss Miller, after that, did you ever again see Sergeant Hall alive?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
Well, about 15 minutes later, I wondered what was happening, so I went outside.
Outside where, Miss Miller?
Outside the back door.
And what did you see there?
I saw Sergeant Hall lying on the ground.
Was he still alive?
Yes, sir.
But hurt?
Yes, sir.
How did you know he was hurt?
Well, there was blood coming from his head, and he was barely conscious.
And what did you do then?
I went over to him.
When you went over to him, did Sergeant Hall say anything to you?
Yes, he did.
In his exact words, tell the court what he said.
He said, Corey hit me. Bottle.
Your witness, Mr. Maris.
Miss Miller, prior to the 3-week period you mentioned, you'd been going steady with Sergeant Hall, hadn't you?
Yes, Mr. Maris.
To the complete exclusion of Sergeant Corey?
Yes, sir.
What made you break off with Sergeant Hall then?
Well, that is, we decided that it wasn't getting anywhere.
By anywhere, you mean matrimony?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't it actually Sergeant Hall who did the deciding?
Yes.
In other words, he jilted you.
Yes.
Miss Miller, you told the court that you found Sergeant Hall in back of the PX, wounded, and what he said to you. What did you do then?
Well, I went inside to get my father.
And did he come right outside with you?
Well, no, he didn't.
Why not?
I had to look for him.
Where did you find him?
He was in the basement checking deliveries.
Does the basement have an exit to the rear yard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Miss Miller.
Yes, sure I resented the way Hall treated my daughter. What father wouldn't?
Isn't it strange you'd go down to check deliveries at a time like that?
I had to keep occupied, or I'd have gone out and finished him off myself.
What did I do after I left Patman?
That's what I asked.
Well, I went back to the barracks to put away the stuff I had bought, and then I caught a bus into town and took in a show.
All that alone?
Yes, sir. Alone.
You liked Sergeant Hall, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I liked Sergeant Hall. Most of the men liked Sergeant Hall. He was a real human being. He would listen to an explanation. I think you know what I mean.
Yes. What about, Sergeant Corey? You like him too?
I guess about as much as most of the men.
You mean not at all, don't you?
That's about it, sir.
Givers, is it conceivable to you that anyone might have hated Sergeant Corey enough to kill Sergeant Hall so that the blame might fall on Sergeant Corey?
I object. Conjecture.
I withdraw the question.
No, sir. I never had anything against Sergeant Corey, sir.
In fact, I admire him. He won't stand for sloppiness and loose discipline, and that's as it should be. An officer's betraying his men, if he's any different.
Byron, you're a draftee, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
You talk like an idealistic West Pointer. Do you intend to make the Army a career?
No, sir.
Any relatives in the service?
No, sir.
Formerly in the service?
My brother.
Officer?
No, sir, private.
Objection. Major Nichols, I don't see how this clarifies anything in the slightest degree connected with this case.
Mr. Maris, will you please adhere to the matter before the court?
I apologize for digressing, Major. Private Patman, from the time Givers left to the time you left, were there any other witnesses present?
None that I saw, sir.
After Sergeant Corey sent you to go get the MPs, how long was it before you came back with them?
About 12 minutes.
What did you find when you got back?
We found Sergeant Hall dead, and Mr. Miller and his daughter were there with the body.
Thank you, Private Patman.
As the prosecuting counsel, any more questions from this witness?
No, sir.
You were dismissed, Private Patman.
Where are you going? It's only a 10-minute recess.
To get a phone number.
Well, who are you calling?
A friend of mine in the Pentagon struck me I haven't inquired after his health in a long time.
Uh-huh, and incidentally?
To ask him a favor. Private Patman, I remind you, you're still under oath. You told the court this morning that 12 minutes elapsed between the time Sergeant Corey sent you for the MP and the time you returned with him.
Yes, sir.
I understand there's always an MP at the East Gate, and that's 2 minutes from the PX. How do you account for the rest of the time?
I didn't remember at first. I started out to the military police headquarters, and then I turned back.
Private Patman, do you agree that it's possible that Sergeant Hall might have been left in such a condition by Sergeant Corey that when he finally regained consciousness and found his head split open and bleeding, he correctly assumed he'd been hit by a bottle, but incorrectly that Corey had done it? Isn't that possible?
I agree that it's possible.
In fact, during the 12 minutes you say you looked for the MP, you could even have done it yourself. Isn't that so?
Sir, the defense is trying to raise a reasonable doubt by the feeble means of showing that others had opportunity. Prosecution feels that the court should be warned against such tactics.
Duly noted. Proceed, Mr. Maris.
The defense is grateful to the prosecution for conceding that others had opportunity. Private Patman, how long have you been at this post?
2 months, sir.
How well do you know Sergeant Hall?
Not at all, sir.
Not at all?
No, sir.
Then if you didn't know him at all, you couldn't have had anything against him.
I guess that's right, sir.
You never heard of Sergeant Hall before?
Heard of him?
That's what I said.
Yes, sir.
From whom?
My brother.
The same brother you said was in service?
Yes, sir.
In letters?
Yes, sir.
From Korea?
Yes, sir.
What was the relationship between your brother and Sergeant Hall?
Hall was the sergeant in command of my brother's platoon.
Private Patman, the night of July 23rd, 1951, there was a surprise attack. Your brother was one of 6 men of that platoon killed. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that your father felt that attack would never have happened if Sergeant Hall had attended to his duties properly and wrote to Washington complaining of Sergeant Hall?
Yes, sir.
And that your father felt that way because on one occasion your brother had written him a letter about Sergeant Hall's leniency toward a guard who'd fallen asleep at his post.
Yes, sir.
And that your father received a reply assuring him there'd been a thorough inquiry, the results of which proved that Sergeant Hall was in no way responsible for the success of that attack or for its consequences.
Yes, sir.
But your father never accepted that assurance, did he?
No.
And neither did you.
No.
And so when chance brought you to this base and you found yourself in a situation where you could act all at once as judge, jury, and executioner...
Yes, I killed him. I killed him because he killed my brother. Because he killed my brother. Because he killed my brother.
I ask the court to return a verdict of not guilty for Sergeant James Corey.
Maris, thanks a million for everything.
No, thank me, thank John.
You're gonna make a good 20-year man, Sergeant.